Out of all the years that I've spent playing video games, I have to say that even as I've grown into a cynical 25-year-old with severe carpal tunnel syndrome, nothing seems to make me smile like playing a good old-fashioned Nintendo game. Nintendo isn't the only big-name game company, of course. They aren't even leading the charge, so to speak, in having the most powerful console with the best graphics. But somehow I still consider them to be the king of games. And I think a lot of that opinion has to do with not just the quality of their products, which admittedly can be a bit of a crapshoot nowadays, but because of just how long they have been an active presence in this industry. Even if you aren't much of a fan of them, which I completely understand, to each their own, it is impossible to deny their impact on not just gaming, but pop culture as well.
Wait a second. I know that monkey. His name is Donkey. Monkeys aren't donkeys. Quit messing with my head.
After all, their significance as a brand has now reached the point where we have an entire land dedicated to Mario and Friends and Universal theme parks, and that is bonkers to think about. And if that's not exciting to you, what if I said that you get to meet Toad? Now I know what you're probably thinking right now. Cameron, I didn't subscribe to you because I wanted to hear you talk about video games. You like cartoons, so talk about those instead. Well, first off, no. You're not subscribed because I know for a fact that 97.5% of you Goombas aren't. So why not change that if you end up liking what I have to say here? But I'm almost done with this setup, so bear with me. For many of us out there, Nintendo has been around for pretty much our entire lives. But believe it or not, there was a time in history where Nintendo wasn't such a household name. Series such as Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda were first debuting on the Nintendo Entertainment System back in the 80s, and they were rightfully getting a lot of buzz about them. By the day, it seemed as though more and more people were becoming increasingly aware of Nintendo's power, and one of those people happened to be Andy Hayward, who at the time was the chairman and CEO of DIC Entertainment. In case you're unfamiliar with DIC, they were a powerhouse of an animation studio from the 80s to the late 90s, creating programs that, while at times original, primarily used already existing IPs, which is obvious just by taking a quick glance at their catalog of shows.
Oh shit!
Examples include Rainbow Bright, Care Bears, Mask, The Real Ghostbusters, Elf, The Karate Kid, Archie. As you could probably tell, a lot of these shows existed in order to market their respective toys towards children. And while I can't really speak towards their success since I'm 1995 trash, I think the plethora of Robot Chicken sketches about DIC's shows are good indicators of how popular they were at the time.
Why do we call these masks, by the way? This is a helmet, not a mask.
There were still a good chunk of DIC shows that came later that I do remember watching as a kid, like Captain Planet, Sabrina the Animated Series, Mummies Alive, the English dub of Sailor Moon, and both the original Sonic series as well as Sonic Underground. Yeah, that was a weird one. Many of these shows can be considered memorable for both good and bad reasons, but to me, their legacies pale in comparison to what are perhaps the most notorious cartoons ever to come out of this studio. These are the DICtendo cartoons. These were 3 Nintendo-based shows, all of which released in the exact same week in September of 1989. As the story goes, Andy Hayward supposedly spent a year of his life asking Nintendo to license their characters. And while I'm sure that this was done in a very professional manner, I like to think that during this time, he would mow Miyamoto's lawn and cook him and his family dinner in order to bolster good favor. But hey, I guess it paid off, seeing as how these shows did end up getting made. What was originally proposed as the Super Mario Bros. Power Hour, which would be an hour long and offer viewers all kinds of televised Nintendo goodness, actually ended up getting condensed down into the first show that we're going to discuss, the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. Viewers would suddenly be greeted by Mario's face in the center of the screen, welcoming them to the program by saying,
"Hey, paisanos, it's the Super Mario Bros. Super Show!"
And after this greeting, live-action versions of Mario and Luigi would come dancing onto the screen from both sides, performing for us the iconic plumber rap. Mario was played by Lou Albano, who at the time was best known for his career in the WWF.
32 in place.
Andre the Giant.
And Luigi was portrayed by Danny Wells, a Canadian actor who has appeared on many classic sitcoms in supporting roles, with the most notable being the recurring character of Charlie the Bartender on The Jeffersons.
My aunt died, and I gotta go to Florida for the funeral.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, I hate Florida.
Together, these two not only provided the voices for the animated characters of Mario and Luigi in the cartoon segments, which I will get to in a moment, but they would also perform an isolated live-action skit for each episode with a special guest star. And these guest stars would range anywhere from other WWF stars like Sergeant Slaughter to popular TV stars of the day like Danica McKellar from The Wonder Years or Nicole Eggert from Charles in Charge. Even Andy Hayward paid a visit to the Plumbers in one episode. Now, admittedly, these skits are kind of really bad. Most of the jokes center around the fact that Mario and Luigi are Italian, while also utilizing many of the sound effects from the Mario games to emphasize even the smallest movements that the actors make. But I will say that both Albano and Wells have a certain chemistry that's enjoyable to watch. They don't portray the versions of Mario and Luigi that we are all familiar with today, but they certainly make the characters their own, earning the praise of even current-day Mario fans. So as the introduction to an episode skit was established, the show would then cut to its cartoon segment, indicated by another opening sequence and a continuation of the plumber rap. And say what you will about this series, but there is no getting around the fact that the plumber rap is a certified banger.
Evil Koopa and his troopers are up to misbehaving. They kidnapped the Princess Mushroom Land, need saving. Abusing and confusing, everybody discovers they can't help but be hooked on the brothers.
It honestly gives me the same vibes of the One Piece pirate rap, and I unabashedly love that song despite the circumstances that brought it into existence. Anyways, this Mario cartoon was based off of the first two games, and since Mario 2 features both Princess Toadstool and Toad as playable characters, they tag along with Mario and Luigi on their adventures while also having run-ins with King Koopa. And I really appreciate their inclusion here because the issues that I have with Mario and Luigi's character writing in the live-action segments carry over into the cartoon as well. Look, believe it or not, I don't actually hold anything against the creative team behind this show. They didn't really have a lot of material to go off of. In fact, that's the case for all of these DICtendo shows. These properties were very much in their infancy compared to the titans that they have turned into today, but even with the scarce source material for inspiration, they knew that making something to promote brand awareness was better than doing nothing. I imagine when the writers asked Nintendo about Mario and Luigi's personalities, they probably paused for a few moments and then said, well, they're Italian. And boy oh boy did they roll with that note, because Mario and Luigi have never been more Italian than they are here. You'd think that Mario naming different types of pasta in his sleep is aggressively Italian? Well, wait till you hear about how much he loves to eat culinary abominations like pepperoni cheesecake every 3 minutes. And in contrast to these two, the Princess and Toad are just kind of there. I have to say that I am impressed at how John Stalker, Toad's voice actor, was able to provide such a voice that feels similar to how Toad sounds in the current games.
It's time to rock and roll!
But that being said, Toad hasn't ever been known for having the most pleasurable voice to listen to. So when the focus of an episode shifts to him for X amount of time, it can get pretty grating. And Princess Toadstool, well, she's just bland and uninteresting, unfortunately. I'm admittedly struggling here to think of anything memorable that she did in the episodes that I watched. But King Koopa seems to like her, as he attempts to kidnap her here and there, although I'm sure it's because his character sheet just demands it. 'Cause that's what he does in the games! But alas, King Koopa never comes off as that intimidating of an antagonist, as he gets outsmarted by these plucky paisanos pretty easily every time. Oh yeah, and Mark Twain shows up at some point, along with other weird one-off characters each episode, but I'm ready to move on now.
Oh my God! What's wrong with your face?
Next up, we have the Legend of Zelda cartoon, which was also included in the Super Mario Bros. Super Show.
Oh, scary. Something tells me we'd better be right back after these exciting scenes from The Legend of Zelda.
Yep, not even Hyrule is safe from the wacky shenanigans of these pesky plumbers. But before we get into the details of the show, I feel it necessary to give a little bit of a content warning. While nothing in The Legend of Zelda is explicit, as it was intended for children, I still feel it necessary to discuss the sexually predatory character motivations of Link in order to provide a proper critique. But there are people who understandably don't want to hear about that. So feel free to go to the timecode that I've provided below so that you can just jump into the next show. I knew going in that this series' interpretation of Link was a far cry from the Link that we know today, but holy shit, dude. He is so far removed from the silent protagonist that we all know and love that to even refer to this drawing as Link feels like giving it more respect than it deserves. He's not just an egotistical jerk here. No, this man is a straight-up sexual predator. Before finding this out, I was actually expecting The Legend of Zelda to be my favorite out of the 3 prior to watching. But that changed very quickly as I was subjected to watching one of the most unlikable protagonists that I've ever seen, whose only motivation for protecting Zelda and the Kingdom of Hyrule is that maybe, just maybe, he will get to f her. He never mentions sex, only kissing. This is a kid's cartoon after all, but there are scenes that imply that he's looking for a little more than just a kiss. I mean, look at him, he's literally jumping at her like some sort of horny Looney Tunes character, and it just gives me the creepiest vibes I've ever felt from a kid's show. His behavior is even encouraged at times, like this moment when he's planning on swinging into Zelda's bedroom from an overlooking tower. But as he's getting ready, her dad, the king, comes by. Normally in this kind of situation, you would expect the king of all people to say something along the lines of, "Hey Link, if you keep forcing yourself on my daughter, I'm going to kick your ass out of my castle." But no, instead this happens.
Hey, what are you up to, Link? I was, just gonna swing in through your daughter's window and try to get her to kiss me.
Not a chance.
No?
No. You'll need to take flowers.
Are you fucking serious right now, dude? But what makes all of this worse to me is that sometimes, usually at the end of an episode, Zelda is kind enough to be like, sure, yeah, I guess you deserve a kiss. And as they begin to lean into each other, Link's fairy companion Sprite gets in between them because she's the one who is really in love with Link. Which is rude, because Link has made it abundantly clear to Sprite that he does not like tiny women. I don't know, this all just feels extremely weird to me, as this choice in character for Link is shockingly out of left field. Like, where exactly did they get the idea for him to be this way? Well, at the time of the cartoon's release, Zelda 2 was the most recent entry into the game series. And spoiler alert if you aren't aware, but that game ends with an implied kiss between Link and Zelda after he rescues her. You don't see their face pixels touch, but it's pretty obvious. And since, like with Mario, there wasn't much material to go off of at the time, the writers seem to have run with getting a kiss to be Link's ultimate goal. Which sucks in a lot of ways, as it not only diminishes Link's character, but Zelda's as well. The games have done an excellent job for so many years of making Zelda not the end goal herself, but rather a crucial player in the fight against Ganon. And for the sake of full transparency here, I know that if you asked a group of millennial dudes who their first video game crush was, like some Family Feud style poll, Zelda without a doubt would be in the top 3. But this is just blatant objectification of a character that's done nothing to deserve this. And it's not even like she does nothing while Link saves the day. She actively involves herself in the plot quite frequently, proving herself capable multiple times, whether it's sniping enemies with her bow or accompanying Link to rescue her father from Ganon. By herself, she hasn't been done any kind of injustice here. But whenever Link opens his goddamn mouth,
Excuse me, princess.
that's when the show becomes infuriating to watch. My favorite episode was when Link gets turned into a Toad Man because Ganon's minions horny bait him into a trap, and it works. Speaking of Ganon, he's probably the best part of this show. Sure, his plans to steal the Triforce in each episode always feel kinda rushed given the constraints of having a 17-minute runtime, but he's certainly menacing design-wise. He feels vaguely reminiscent of a Masters of the Universe villain, which could very well be what they were going for here given the popularity of He-Man. But would I recommend this show purely based on the design of a demon pig wizard? Dear God, no. And now, the last show that we're going to be discussing, Captain N, the Game Master. So you know how I just talked about 2 shows that focused on Mario and Legend of Zelda, which were easily the most popular Nintendo games at the time? Well, imagine that they took all of the other games that were on the NES and threw them into a blender. And that's pretty much Captain N. And let me tell you, this one was actually the best, despite still being pretty unwatchable to today's standards. It actually outlived both the Super Show and Zelda, although Mario did live on for a few more years alongside Captain N. But it would get updated as Super Mario 3 and World released, and those were technically different shows. But I've talked enough about Mario in this video already, so I think it's time to give the B-listers their time to shine. The protagonist of this story is real-life high school student Kevin Keene, who along with his dog Duke, gets sucked into Videoland via the ultimate warp zone so that he can save the virtual world from the tyrannical Mother Brain. You know, from Metroid. The isekai setup of this cartoon was automatically intriguing to me as an anime fan, especially given the fact that it's a world populated purely by Nintendo heroes and villains. But in case you couldn't tell purely from just taking a look at Mother Brain, the biggest mark against this show is just how poorly the character designs have aged over time. Since our main squad, other than Captain N of course, are all in Super Smash Bros. Now, allow me to provide you with their game art from Smash just to show you how far they've all come since the late 80s. First up, we got Mega Man, who smokes a pack a day and likes to add the word mega as a prefix to almost everything that he says.
Mega high! There's a mega emergency call coming in. With Captain N leading us, we'll have the mega power to win. There's no time to waste. We've got to mega move it.
Then there's Kid Icarus, whose voice is the pubescent equivalent to nails on a chalkboard. He also likes to add Icus as a suffix to almost everything he says.
My arrows will stop that Apicus Maximus. Speaking of her Hydicus, if King Hippicus sits on me, I'll be Squashicus Maximus.
And then there's this guy that claims to be Simon Belmont.
Come on, Simon. We're going to Bayou Land.
And get my clothes filthy? I'm the most handsome, so after we win the games, my face goes on the cereal box.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I get it. It can be challenging having so many characters from vastly different genres of games to come together and attempt to somehow have them all look like they fit in with each other. But in my opinion, I think that the show would have worked just as well if they didn't try so hard to do this. After all, we live in a post-Spider-Verse world now where this very concept of characters from stylistically different universes came together, and it worked. And while to some people, the idea of having separate art styles for characters all hanging out together may sound like a bad idea on paper, I think that it can be pulled off. Streaming platforms seem to be chomping at the bit right now to reboot whatever they can for adults, and Netflix's Castlevania series has proven that there is at least an audience for serious video game related shows. I am 100% sure that this is never going to happen, but man, if it did... Sorry about that, I think I got a little caught up there. In addition to Kevin, we also have series original character Princess Lana. Oh god. Nobody introduced her to Link! I hate to bring this back up, but do you remember how I was saying that Zelda wasn't really designed to be that sexualized? I'm not so confident that I can say the same for Princess Lana here. She's intended to be Kevin's love interest for the series, and also the man who claims to be Simon Belmont is her biggest simp. But even then, both Kevin and Simon treat her with more respect than Link ever gave Zelda, so I guess that's kind of refreshing in a really sad way. Episodes in this series usually involve the N team going to some video game world that's inside Videoland to solve a problem that's usually caused by Mother Brain's cronies. King Hippo from the Punch-Out series, and Eggplant Wizard from Kid Icarus. These worlds allow for a lot of creativity, and they seem to do as good of a job as they can within the budget. Although the choppiness of frames is glaringly apparent, which can be said about all of these shows, but it's most noticeable here. Captain N seemed to get the short end of the stick for at least the first season, likely due to the fact that this feels the most like an actual commercial for Nintendo products and focuses less on making the characters look, well, good. Not even discussing the video games themselves, we have a Power Glove, audibly prophesying Kevin's arrival through the Ultimate Warp Zone. Kevin also has an NES controller belt that gives him video game-based powers like jumping high and hitting pause on enemies. And he also uses a zapper. Yeah, they're not trying to be subtle here, but if I saw this as a kid, I would definitely want to have some of that Captain N drip. So I'm sure this did the job of boosting sales for at least some of these Nintendo products. Captain N is certainly the most unique Nintendo show to be produced by DIC, and I think that it's the most rewatchable purely due to how much of a time capsule it is. It's a love letter to old school Nintendo, but like the kind of love letter that was scribbled in crayon and drooled on a little by a third grader, but even that has some charm to it. Like I said, a modern interpretation of this would be cool, but if they decided to keep it as close to the original as possible, all that I ask is that you please cast Danny DeVito as Mega Man.
I'm the trash man.
Well, I think that just about does it for my DICtendo retrospective. This admittedly took a bit longer than I anticipated it would, but it was nonetheless a joy to work on. And as long as I have you here, I'd be more than grateful if you not only liked this video, but if you commented and subscribed as well. I know that I kinda already said this at the beginning of the video, but in all honesty, creating these videos for all of you is extremely fulfilling to me, and I'd love to have the luxury of investing more of my time into working on them. I still have a ways to go before that can become more of a reality, but your engagement and support help more than you might realize. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and remember, if you do drugs, you'll go to hell before you die.
Do the Mario! Swing your arms from side to side, come on, it's time to go do the Mario! Take one step, and then again, let's do the Mario all together now! Come on now, just like that!
Dick.